Hey everyone, I'm Ed, and today I'm here to talk you through a brand new release of Plottr. The release will include a few bug fixes and an overhaul of the outline tab. The objective of this overhaul is to make it easier for you to plan out the sequencing of all of the scenes and every detail in your book when it goes from a grid view, where it's by line and by chapter, into a book where things must follow one after the other. Let's see how we did that by jumping straight into Plottr. I have the Three Little Pigs demo project open here, and I'm on the Timeline tab. And from the Timeline tab, we can see that the plot lines are organized along the left and the chapters along the top. And at each point that those two intersect, and we decide there should be a scene, we've inserted a scene card, or potentially multiple. There's nothing new about this. This is the way that Plottr works, and it's very useful for seeing how individual plot lines work in isolation, and for identifying where we might be lacking some information about various plot lines within different chapters. But it's not immediately clear how you would go from this grid view into a book where things must follow one after the other. To address that problem, we've reimagined the outline. This is the plan view. It's one of two new ways of viewing the outline of your work. The other is the full text view, and we'll get to that in a moment. The first thing you might notice about the plan view is that we have the chapters organized along the top. The second is that the scene cards aren't organized into a grid anymore because the plot lines aren't listed on the left. Instead, the plot line that each scene card came from is indicated by the color of the scene card. So we have a red scene card here that's titled Makes House from Straw, and if we go back to the timeline, we see that Makes House from Straw came from the red plot line, i.e. pig number 1. What this view lets you do is decide on the order of the scene cards within each chapter. So we could decide that we want to talk about the House of Sticks first. So we'll drag that to the top. And when we do, we not only see this new ordering, but we also see an indicator that we've manually sorted this chapter. And this helps us see that we've planned out how we envisage to write the final work when we turn it into a book. We can get rid of the manual sorting, and then these scene cards revert to the ordering that you'd see them if you hopped back to the timeline where your plot lines have been ordered from top to bottom. For now, I'm going to put the House of Sticks at the top of this chapter. One thing that I've noticed while I'm working on this is that we have these blue cards, and they seem to be more about planning out what I'm going to cover in all of the other plot lines per chapter. So if that is the case, I might not want to see them in this view, and I might not want to have them in the final work, even though they were very useful on the timeline where I was planning out the content that I wanted to cover. So we can use an existing feature of Plottr here to eliminate the main plot from the view and only see the plots that will contribute to the final written work. Another thing that we can do from here is that we can drag and drop between the different chapters. I'm going to put this back into chapter 1 because I think it belongs there. We can also see what's inside of each scene card, the description. And we can get a full scene card editor just like we can on the timeline. So, suppose that we've done all the reordering we want to, and now we want to see what the impact of this ordering is on the final work. That's where the full text view comes into play. We'll pop over to full text, and now what we see is that each scene card has been expanded so that it's almost as if you've drawn them all out on full pieces of paper. And this gives you a much better indicator of how your book might turn out. The backgrounds of each scene card correspond to the plot lines they came from. So we can see that we have the red plot line first, then the orange, then the yellow. Then we have the green plot line at the start of chapter 3. And we can zoom out and see how this all starts to fit together. We can also make those plot line colors more distinctive. And we can eliminate them all together if we want. And then we get a view that's a lot more like a traditional word processor. You can decide how much detail you want to show by eliminating the chapter titles and the scene card titles to see only the description. And you can further condense this all down by eliminating the gaps between chapters. And now we have a very compact view of all of the descriptions that we wrote for our cards. But I'm going to go back to showing the chapter gaps and showing the chapter titles, and then I'm going to center the chapter titles because I think this looks the best for me. As I hover over each scene card, you'll notice that on the right there's a summary of the chapter, plotline, and card title that scene card corresponds to. So I can hover down here and we'll see that the wolf is hungry and can smell a meal is close comes from chapter 3. The plot line is wolf and the card title is smells pigs nearby. Now I can also edit that description right here. Here's some new text. Close it and we can see what that looks like straight away. You can go between the plan view and the full text view as many times as you like and reorder the scenes so that the full text view looks right. But what if you'd like a different perspective on your work? Well, we added a print button. And if I click it, then this operating system dialog pops up and I'm going to select Microsoft Print to PDF. I'll print it to this file called 3littlepigs.pdf. And if I open up that file, I'll see that it looks like a document from any other word processor, except that it's the full text view that we were just working on. This is great because I can put it on my phone or tablet. I could even print it out physically and then scribble all over it if I wanted. There's just one last feature that I'd like to show you before we wrap things up today. Back on the plan view, I initially said that the colors of cards came from their plot lines. So we know that the green plot line is the wolf's plot line, and so all the green cards come from the wolf's plot line. But there's another way of seeing how things work here, and that's by turning the plot line colors into card colors. And if we do so, we'll notice that none of these cards actually have a color yet. If you haven't yet started using colors, then this might be a good moment to consider using them for broad strokes planning. So for instance, I could open up the card for runs to home of pig number 3, and I could make this card red, which will really make it stick out in this view. And that could indicate to me that my editor thinks there's something wrong, or perhaps I need to flesh out some details in this card, or any other number of things. I could make this card green, and that could indicate to me that I've finished with this card, and only when all of the cards have turned green will I have finished writing out my work. Of course, at any time we can pop back to the plotline perspective, and this really helps us to see how the different plot lines weave together, and that helps you to reorganize the scenes within the chapters. Thanks so much for joining me today for this quick preview of the Outline Reimagined. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for further updates, and happy plotting.